welcome to the show. You're watching The Human Resource. My name's Pandy Bridewar. I have, we just realized I can now call her an old guest.
Not in age, Pandy, not in age.
Leah Stiegler with Woods and Rogers is back, and she's talking about what else? The legalities of leave of absence. And not that that's her only topic, if you've been watching the show. And actually, I was just complimenting her because our first show on the podcast was back in September of 2024. That shows you how much we love her. But yeah, welcome back, Leah. We're so glad to have you.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Well, this is a topic that I don't think people think too much about, but I really appreciate you coming on and just reiterating some of the guidance that individuals need to be aware of when somebody wants to take a leave of absence.
Yeah, sure. And we're talking medical leave of absence.
There is a difference.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, it's really timely because, we've had the Federal Family Medical Leave Act for many years, but states are more and more implementing their own, family leave programs and even paid leave programs. For the first time this past spring, we had in Virginia, that's where I'm located, we had a paid family leave law passed. So I think it's a more timely topic for a lot of HR professionals around the country.
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up from the standpoint that FMLA, Family Medical Leave Act, is a federal law. But the case that we're about to talk about and the one you're referring to with Virginia, those are state laws. And what many of our newer, our less veteran HR folks, or maybe a CFO, yes, I just love those finance people, they don't realize that leaves stack.
Right.
And the rules may be slightly different, but if they're happening concurrently, we need to be aware of all that we can or cannot do.
Absolutely. Yeah, you very well may be running everything from a paid family medical leave and a family medical leave program at the exact same time and making sure you're properly documenting that as well.
So in this particular case, how did they mess up?
Yeah, so this is a case Laughlin versus Binstar, and there were a couple of other interesting part about it was the plaintiff was high level, I believe, like a CEO, sued the company as well as sued, I want to say, some board members, board of directors members. So you see this idea of trying to pin some individual liability on others. And he ultimately, the CEO took medical leave under Massachusetts state paid family medical leave program. And you also have maybe the FMLA, federal FMLA running concurrently, right? Kind of employer docking it, doesn't change too much. But he ultimately alleged that an FMLA interference claim as well as a retaliation claim. Now, there are two types of claims, and I'll just use FMLA to encompass both state and federal as we're talking here today. But just know some states may have some additional claims that you could bring. But the two main claims that we see under the Family Medical Leave Act are one, a retaliation claim, or two, an interference claim. So retaliation is I apply for family medical leave and I am treated negatively because of it. I'm terminated because of it. Or I come back from family medical leave and my position has somewhat changed or something like that. So sort of this retaliation for invoking your lawful rights under the FMLA. Interference, on the other hand, is an employer kind of interferes with someone's benefit to actual leave benefit. They're entitled to this leave and they interfere with it. And I usually see this in two ways. One is where someone doesn't even take the leave. They just ask about it. And then HR or supervisors kind of delaying or not really giving them the benefit of the leave and not maybe giving them the right paperwork, right? So really kind of deterring their ability. So that's where you can see it, one. And the other way is, as in this case, you had the CEO, he went out on leave, and while he was out, these board of directors, his supervisors, so to speak, were reaching out to him, right? Asking him to work, to do tasks.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's what somebody wants to be doing when they're on medical leave.
Right. I know. I mean, look, we as an employer, right, you want your employees to work, but the purpose of leave is to take time away from work. And if you're legally entitled to that protected time, you can't also be forced to be working during that time too. So excluding any wage and hour issues, but you have this idea of they were asking him, I think they, in one situation, they asked him to terminate a high level director, right? So actually, go through termination records, pick up the phone, have a termination conversation. That's working time. That's interfering with his ability to take that leave.
Do you? I read in the case as I was going through 65 different requests or messages.
Right.
Now that means that there was possibly more than one in a single day.
Sure. Yeah. I think they maybe just didn't necessarily respect the leave request. I mean, I'm just guessing here, but you know, that's a lot of time. And you're out for 2, 3 months and 65 requests. I mean, at some point you might even have a wage and hour claim, because as an exempt employee, as a CEO, he should have been getting his salary for that each of those weeks he was working.
And that's where I was going to go. There are more things that get complicated with this. So elaborate on that, and please, look, and we can talk about the non-exempt worker as well. But if you're going to do this, let's say that you go, well, but it's inevitable. I mean, as CEO, we were going to have to ask questions of that person. They're going to have to be available to us. What does the company then need to be prepared for?
Succession planning in some sense. I mean, I tell clients all the time because they're like, what? This person can't go out on leave and, we can't do this. And there are very limited exceptions. There's like one very limited exception under the FMLA where you can deny it. But, like if your employee gets hit by a bus tomorrow, any one of your employees, you need to know as a company, what were they doing? What were their tasks? What projects were they working on? Right. And so companies, the thing with FMLA is if someone needs to take it and it's for something that they can provide advance notice for, like I'm going to be, childbirth down the road or a surgery, then that's a little easier, right? Because we can say, yeah, all right, well, during this 2-month period while you're gearing up for your surgery, we will have someone shadow you and you'll transition some of those duties. On the other hand, FMLA, there are many instances where people take FMLA for reasons that are not in advance. And so I think in the Laughlin case, I don't recall exactly, but I think there was some mental health reasons why he took it, right? And so that's a more imminent need. And so a company has to be prepared. And I've had situations, Pandy, where, companies aren't prepared and someone in a very important role goes out, maybe they get hurt or, they get diagnosed with something or they have a mental health breakdown and they or go to rehab or something. And the company has to try to, like, on the back end, talk to subordinates, figure out what they were doing. But you see it all the time. One of my really good friends, he's actually out on parental leave right now under the FMLA. And I was talking to his wife on the phone the other day. And she said, "Oh yeah, John's on the phone with work right now. They had an issue at the plant." And I was like, "Wait a minute, isn't he on parental leave?" And she was like, "Yeah, but they have this. He's the VP of operations at a plant." She's like, "Yeah, they have this issue though, and he's worked through it before, and so he's kind of talking through with the engineers on how to do it." And I'm over here just like the wet blanket, ding ding ding, FMLA interference. Even though he's being a good soldier and helping them out, but.
Well, and that's I think that's the worst part is the employees feel guilty if they don't.
Right.
And you and I talked in the pre-show. I knew of one company who literally set a time by which to check in with this individual every week. And I said, no, I mean, that's a set meeting. So
Sure.
to your point, if that individual were exempt, though FMLA as a policy is unpaid, by calling or contacting this gentleman 65 times during his leave or calling that meeting every Tuesday to check in, that individual should have gotten paid for the whole week, just
100%.
under the rules of wage and hour, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. And I think one thing that I see, companies are scared about disclosing too much private health information to the wrong people. And so it may be that somebody takes an employee takes an FMLA or takes FMLA, works it out with HR, doesn't necessarily tell their supervisor. And then HR is trying to be confidential and says to the supervisor, "Hey, Leah's going to be out on leave starting on Tuesday and she'll be out for about 3 weeks. And, this is approved leave and you need to work with it."
Yeah.
And maybe the supervisor doesn't necessarily have either the background or the training in FMLA or anything to know that you're not supposed to interfere. And so as a practical matter, they're texting the employee or whoever, like, hey, what's going on? Or do you know where this project is? And it's often a very innocent approach, or it could even be subordinates. If subordinates of
Yeah.
somebody are reaching out to them, that's still working, that's still work, and they're interfering with their ability to take leave. So a company has to have some ownership of communicating appropriately to the employees that work with that individual. And this is probably HR's role to say, I can't give you too many details, but you can't be reaching out to this person while they're out on leave. So I don't know. I don't know what your advice to HR would be in terms of how you have those conversations, but I'd be curious.
Uh, don't do it.
Don't do it.
Get
Yeah.
everything caught up to this point. If they call in voluntarily,
Right.
if they call in to us and say, hey, how's this project doing?
Yeah.
Well, okay. But let's get back to the non-exempt people. They have to be paid for actual hours worked.
Yeah.
So just because they're non-exempt doesn't mean you get off free. But Leah, let's also talk about when it's not the medical condition of the employee. Same thing if they're caring for a family member, because I think some of these companies go, oh, well, it's not them. They're not impaired. They should be working during this time.
Yeah.
Not the same.
Yeah, it's funny. I often see people confuse the concepts, especially supervisors or confuse the concepts of medical leave with accommodations, in the sense of they think, oh, this person, they're not here. They're actually going to be working from home. And it's like, no, no, no,
Oh,
they're actually not working from home. We haven't approved them as an accommodation to work from home.
yes.
They're actually on leave and are not to be working.
Yes.
So,
And I'm going to go one further. I've got some individuals who are on short-term disability, and I've heard of, oh, well, they're on short-term disability, but they're going to be working from home. And I'm
right.
like,
No.
can you spell fraud?
Right.
You're telling the insurance company that you want to get paid, so you're going to double dip. I mean,
Yeah.
that's just crazy to me.
Yeah.
And the employer has to be the one to stand up and go, no, as much as we would love to have you back, until we get the doctor's release form, until the insurance company says you are not on short-term disability anymore, heal. just stay home and heal.
It's interesting too. I just had a situation last month where an employee was out on family medical leave and then starts emailing HR regularly, saying, from her personal email, saying, I've been blocked out of my emails. I've been blocked out of my company accounts. So I can't get access, and I need access. I need to see my calendar. I want to check on certain things. And so HR was reaching out to me like, wait a minute. Well, we, as a policy, which is a good policy, we
Yes.
shut down employee access. And this employee is sitting out on leave and they want access. And I was like, no, my advice would be, you tell her, I'm sorry, but as a policy, you're on FMLA, which is approved time off with your intended return to work date. When you return to work, we will start your accounts, but you are approved to not be working at this time. And so if you open up, even if they say, Pandy, I really want to gain access because I need to see, I have some personal documents that I saved on the computer. I need to see those documents. I'm like, no, 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 we're not, that's just fraught with peril. They're going to go on their Outlook. They're going to start Teams messaging people.
Yes.
They're going to check in to see
Yes.
where things are, just to make sure that they're not forgotten. So you as HR need to work with IT and go through their records and get those personal records over to them.
Yes. Yes. Laugh with me. That just reminded me of a family member, okay, who went out on maternity leave here about 2 months ago. And she had told the family, look, I'm just going to enjoy the summer. So I'm going to take 6 months. And they're, oh, 6 months is a lot, but okay, we'll see if you make it. Well, we're going to bet on 4 months. The IT person comes to me and says, I'll take care of it. I'll make sure she doesn't work. I said, oh, that's great. Okay. Now again, I'm just a consultant. I come in, just hither, thither, beyond. And I got a call from the family member, and she says, Pandy, did you tell IT that he was to take my laptop? Because he tried to take my laptop and my key. And I'm like, oh my God. No, no, I did not tell them to take your laptop and your key. I told him to make it comfortable so that you wouldn't feel compelled to work. That's okay. And she started laughing. She goes, yeah, I understand. Mom and Dad are saying the same thing. But I said, no, nobody's going to, nobody's going to take your laptop. However, if it's a regular employee, not a family member, look, it's company property. That can happen, right?
Yeah, it's funny. I think that in a way, like that could be construed if a company did, kind of deviate, if that was policy and they did it to everyone, that's one thing. But if they really wanted to deter someone from taking FMLA, then giving it that bad look of it almost looks like you're temporarily laid off or
Yes.
terminated in a way
Yes.
could look like FMLA interference if you're deterring someone from wanting to take that leave, I mean, yeah, you're going to have a child, you go out for 12 weeks, you want to feel secure like your job's going to be there when you get back. I mean, if they take your keys from you, you know, I understand we don't want you coming in and building on the weekends just to do some work, but
Well, the crazy thing is there's cameras. I mean, everybody's going to know if there was access in the building, and these are. But see, this is what's so important for the audience is that look, this kind of stuff is happening, and it's happening everywhere. Nobody's getting this perfect, unless they've been doing it for a very long time. Unless they've got somebody like Leah right there in their back pocket that they can call and ask those questions to. They can call me and ask me the questions. I mean, you need to partner. If you have any questions about how to do this correctly and to stay compliant, find yourself a partner. Leah's always available. And you're on LinkedIn, Leah?
Yep, LinkedIn. I have a little video podcast series called What's the T in L&E, that's employment. So you can find that on YouTube as well.
Do that because you can't get enough information. This stuff is just crazy. Stay with us. Come back next week because Leah's going to be back to talk about the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act. And we
Thanks for having me.
all need that. See you next week.